Some of our viewers may have noticed the smoke drifting across the northeastern U.S. That's from those wildfires that ravaged Alberta earlier last week, and we're just not quite done with the smoke. Anyway, let's take a look at that surface map. We are off to a little bit of a late start this afternoon. The 10th on every other month is when I complete the column for weather-wise. I've got a map analysis column in there, so check that out. And this afternoon we've got ourselves a Pacific system moving through Colorado. Cold front crossing into western New Mexico, and behind it some cooler air, only 73 at Phoenix and 76 at Las Vegas. Further to the east, we've got a dry line set up from a triple point around Russell, Kansas, all the way down to Childress and down towards Sanderson. Back behind it, dew points in the 20s, 30s, and 40s. And we've got that easterly flow. And when we have a dry line set up like that, easterly winds, we do have to be on watch for thunderstorms along the dry line and near the triple point. Let's start out with the northeastern U.S. Not much going on up there. Polar high across the Great Lakes all the way down towards the Delmarva, and that puts them under this cold air advection regime with temperatures up there in the 70s. And as we saw, weather out there is fair. Still got some cold air advection cumulus moving through Maine, but the rest of the northeastern U.S. under clear skies, and we're returning to southerly flow out there in the Midwest. In the southeastern U.S., a quiet weather pattern, a few thunderstorms going up just south of Jacksonville, and as we move towards the west, the weather does get a little bit more interesting. There's a mesoscale convective vortex out there, possibly another one out there in the Gulf of Mexico. The main one that we're dealing with here in Texas is right about there. And with that, numerous showers and thunderstorms moving through Houston, Beaumont, and all the way back towards Lafayette, Louisiana. And doesn't look like much up to the north, but there is quite a bit of precip coming down. A lot of this is shallow convection. And if you go to a website like Pivotal Weather, some interesting graphics, what you have to do is go up to 700 millibars, the temperature, height, and wind product. And if you animate that, you can see a cyclone right there. This starts out this morning about 12Z. That's located just north of Austin. You can see those winds spiraling around the center. And if you look at the temperature field, the shading, that indicates some cooler conditions aloft. So with the temperature at the ground being relatively the same across the area, the lapse rates right here are steeper, and that supports shower activity. And then going forward through the day, you can see that low drifting to the northeast. By this evening, it's up there near Dallas, Greenville, and it makes its way up towards Arkansas. It opens up a little bit into this trough right here, but there still will be some showers moving northeast into Arkansas overnight and up into Missouri for tomorrow. Back behind it, you can see the temperatures rising as we get that advection off of the Mexican plateau, and if we look at the soundings, you can see the difference. Capping. Of course, when I say difference, I didn't show you what happened earlier. Let me show you what we have right now. Back that up. So this is going to be the sounding that supports these showers. It's conditionally unstable. That looks a lot like a Florida sounding. So it's very easy to get rising motion. But once we advect that Mexican plateau air, we get that capping, and that pretty much cuts off the convection. And you can see that there's also drier air up above 5,000 feet. So while East Texas and Louisiana deals with the tropical stuff, we've also got the dry line, and there's a slight risk all the way up into Kansas. Let's take a look at the satellite imagery. And at this time, what I'm seeing is convection far back west of the dry line. This is all elevated stuff out there on the New Mexican plateau. This is all air behind the dry line, and then the dry line itself just off the Cap Rock. Now, one important indicator here, if you look at that tropical air mass, you're going to see the cumulus field kind of building in. And there's even more of it out there around Childress and Wellington as time goes on. So that's indicative of moisture advection. Typically, when we're looking at a forecast bust, when the storms are going away, or at least the chances are going down, what you tend to see is erosion where these cloud elements disappear, and that gives way to clear skies. So we've got the opposite. Where are storms going to form? Let's take a look at the high-resolution rapid refresh. And of course, this is cheating a bit, but this is actually a good model, so it's not that bad of an idea to go ahead and use it if it's available. So there's that elevated convection way back west of the dry line. Does anything form on the cap rock close to the dry line? Not really. So what we're seeing is that elevated stuff get going along the Texas-New Mexico border, and it moves eastward, and it probably starts meeting up with some of that moisture. So this is going to be about midnight. So it's definitely going to be a late show. Dew point, we can use that to track the moisture surge. The green is going to be 50s dew points. The cyan is 60s dew points. Scale is a little bit off the bottom there, but there's the moisture advection. It's definitely surging in, 60s up to Amarillo late tonight. So yeah, we're definitely looking at later in the evening before that moisture meets up with those storms. And we've got our other problem area, Colorado. Tornado watch just issued for northeastern Colorado and adjoining parts of Nebraska and Kansas. And then we've got a severe box all the way down towards Clayton and Tucumcari. So let's go in for a closer look. It's always good to check that surface chart. Definitely a boundary east-west through that region, and the triple point well off to the east. So when we see that, that tells us probably an upslope flow situation going on. So your first stop should always be the satellite imagery. We've got deep convection already going on in northwestern Kansas near Interstate 70. More convection down to the south around Pueblo, La Junta, and then other stuff up along the Front Range back into the Rockies. Now there is a very strong south to north movement, and when I see that, I kind of suspect that this will carry the storms off into a less favorable area. This could link up with the better upslope region, so this here will bear watching as it moves into northeastern Colorado. And these other cells, as they mature and move to the north, those could also get into a favorable position with respect to that upslope flow area. And we're talking about this area with the low cloud field. You can see down to the south, rather dry, high LCLs, and up to the north, also dry, so the better wedge of moisture is right in there. Now, I am making some assumptions about where the better air mass is, so let me double check that. So what I want to do here is look at the dew points. So 60s dew points, I'm going to draw that out. There's the wedge of 60, and that trails on up off to the east towards Grand Island and back towards... All right. I think it's time to let the dog in. Okay, then our 55-degree wedge, about like that, and then up towards, it's going to be around the Sandhills and back towards O'Neill. So that right there is the better moisture. Another thing that I would look for is low clouds. I do see marginal VFR ceilings in here, the blue colors. So that right there is where the storms are going to thrive. So there's one little cluster moving north, a couple of clusters probably intercepting that axis right there, and then as they go north, probably a little bit less favorable. And you can see the back flow through there. That's going to be good for curvature in the photograph. Yeah, what do you think about that? That's pretty good curvature. Obviously not that great if you're living in that region, but if you're a supercell looking to get some spin, that looks very favorable. And I've got the theta E plot right here, and you can actually visualize that better moisture. So it looks like the southern tier counties of Nebraska. Then as you go south of that into Kansas, the air mass gets drier. And let me show you the LCLs. Yeah, that's going to be the LCL height. And those purple colors are actually not favorable. That's getting up into the 2,000 to 3,000 meter range. That means very high bases on the storms. What you want are these light yellow colors and blues. So that area right there is actually what is favorable for supercells. And that's what brings up the significant tornado parameter. There it is. You've probably seen that in a couple of my books. Low LCLs, that's going to be favorable for rotating storms. There's a quick look at the radar. The favorable area is going to be right up here. So the cells are continuing to develop, and there's still some time for them to become more severe. We did have one tornado warning out earlier out there at Cheeseman Reservoir, wherever that is, out in the Colorado Springs area. And that's it for now. Let's go ahead and move on. The satellite not directly showing the cold front, but we do see the effects of that antifront setup back behind the front. Numerous showers all the way back from Gallup to Holbrook and out towards Flagstaff, and quite a bit of shower activity as well up in southern Utah. And you've probably noticed a little bit of dynamically generated cirrus right there. We can bring that out using the water vapor imagery. And there it is. That's going to be a sign of upper level forcing and destabilization. Lots of sunshine throughout the northwestern U.S., but with cool mid-level conditions, we're getting showers. You can see some of those up here in northeastern Washington, back into British Columbia. Those anvils, they're kind of merging visually with the snowpack, and a lot of showers as well throughout Oregon. And then we take a look up in Alaska. A occlusion out there in the Gulf of Alaska, but around the east side of this system, a lot of warm air advection, and the temperatures coming up significantly, up to 62 at Klawock in southeastern Alaska, 53 at Delta Junction, and 50 at McGrath. That's about 20 degrees warmer than what we saw back on Monday. And there's the associated warm front. And then going east into Canada, we get back into that cool air. Here's another surge of cold air coming south. Temperatures up to the north have cooled down a little bit. I don't know if I can see that up at the very top. -5 at Eureka, or actually that's +5, and 16 at Longstaff Bluff, 12 at, I think that's Pond Inlet. So certainly some cold air still in place. However, dropping back south, we are looking at a heat wave coming up starting over the weekend and going into early next week. And that's going to be this area. Look at those temperatures right now, 60s and 70s. It's going to be a lot different in several days. So here's what we're talking about. We start out and we see a bit of a Rex block. There's a little bit of a mega right there. High pressure, high heights, and then low heights down to the south. So this is all kind of blocked up. But going into the weekend, things shift around, and we start seeing some ridge building right there. See that upside down U shape? That's going to be a ridge. We're up at 500 millibars, 5 kilometers, 18,000 feet. This is the mid-levels of the troposphere. And as we go into the weekend, there's a 583 high over Washington. This is going to be Friday night. And it keeps building. Pressure rises, height rises, up to 587 for Saturday night, 588, and we're up to 589 by Monday morning. So this is going to be associated with some very warm conditions. This is indicating strong subsidence in the upper part of the troposphere. In fact, throughout most of the troposphere, we're going to get that adiabatic warming down to the surface, and those temperatures are going to come up significantly. And it looks like that ridging holds until about Wednesday and then starts breaking down. We start getting the westerlies picking up, and that'll disrupt some of the heat, although there could still be some Chinook winds right there. And then probably by Thursday or Friday, we're looking at a strong Pacific system moving across the area. Usually you don't get these strong wind flow events except north of a cold front, so probably looking at a situation somewhat like that for the frontal positions. That's going to be Thursday morning next week. So we can look at pivotal weather to see how those temperatures work out. Let's go up to Friday evening. There we go, 70s, starting to get a few upper 70s right there around Valley View. Then going into Saturday, that's going to be Saturday evening right there, starting to see some 80s. And then Sunday, things are even warmer. Now we've got mid-80s in a lot of regions, and I can see an 82-degree reading there at Vancouver. Then for Monday, we've got 86 there at Fort Nelson, 83 at Vancouver, and starting to get a cool down there in southern British Columbia, but still some very hot readings up to the north in Alberta. I am concerned about the wildfires picking up once again around midweek. And there's how it looks on Wednesday evening. It is cooler, starting to get those westerlies. The front probably passed through, and that's how things look for Thursday. So you saw the GFS. Let's cross-check that with the ECMWF. Starting out for Saturday evening, 70s, a few 80s. Then going into Sunday, warming up, hottest temperatures up near Valley View. Okay, so that's close to the GFS. Then for Monday, that's very similar. Tuesday, some very warm conditions on the Front Range in Alberta, 88 there at Edmonton, and starting to see a bit of a cool down in British Columbia. And then the situation cools down for midweek. So Wednesday looking better, and Thursday definitely fairly mild. Now you notice I did not have much emphasis on Washington because there has been a change in the model guidance. Let me show you that. That's from this system we have going on in the Four Corners. Watch it as it lifts to the north. Kind of breaks up there in the northern plains, and then we see one lobe of it, one vortex heading west into Oregon. So that's going to keep the temperatures down. So Portland is getting some relief from this. Not going to be quite as hot, but as you go north, there is a chance for warmer conditions, especially in eastern Washington. So anyway, I've got to get this wrapped up. One little update here. Thunderstorm complex continues to move north into the northwestern tier counties of Kansas. And yeah, there's a pretty good outflow boundary right there, surging to the west. And we're seeing that other cell southeast of Pueblo moving north into the more favorable environment. And then other cells kind of off towards the edge there, moving into the Denver area. Let's take one close look at that. And there we go. Rotating storms closing in on Denver as we record this. This is in that favorable upslope area. So Denver is under the gun, and tornado warnings in effect just south of the city. So if you're in Denver, keep close tabs on what's going on. So the information probably will be a little outdated by the time this gets posted. We've been having some very slow internet speeds since that lightning strike, running about 500 kilobytes per second. However, I am prioritizing getting the other internet provider in here, so hopefully we'll get this corrected. Thanks to Tom Wozencraft for the comments. I think those are some good suggestions. And here's some footage from Greg out there in San Antonio taken last night. So that's all for this edition. Hope you have a great Wednesday evening, and we'll see you back here on Friday. Take care. Bye-bye.